Welcome back to my channel, Nazarenes. We are reading Creation Cries Out, the Mazaroth by Rav Shaw, Paul Sides. Check the description box below for the link to purchase the book. I recommend it. Okay, let's begin. Chapter 12. When was the Debar fulfilled in the flesh? Chapter 12. What is the word Debar? Let's check it out. Come on, computer. Wow, really? Debar, Strong's definition. Debar could means commandment or deed or purpose, or I like to say plan. Debar means plan. Now let's look at the definition of flesh. This is a Strong's definition of the flesh. It denotes mere human nature, the earthly nature of man apart from divine influence, and therefore prone to sin and opposed to God. So if the Messiah was of the flesh, then he was therefore prone to sin and opposed to God. Just keep that in mind. It's something you're going to learn more in this series. That's very important to understand. Alright, back to the book. When exactly was the Nazarene born in fulfillment of the heavenly scroll? According to the heavenly scroll, the plan of salvation through a mediating high priest begins with his birth in the constellation Virgo. Got the doggy snoring, I apologize. Virgo. A virgin will give birth to a beautiful, glorious, and righteous branch. A Nazarene. Branch means Nazarene. Nazarene means branch. The seed of a woman will be a man of humiliation, to rise to be the desire of nations, and will become exalted first as shepherd, then as harvester. There is nothing concerning the coming branch before that point, when he was born in his mother's womb. In the last chapter, I showed that Scripture declares the same thing. Psalms 22, 9 through 10, starting with verse 9. But you took me from my mother's womb, Yahuwah. You made me trust in you. Even from my mother's breast, I was cast upon you. From my birth, from my mother's womb, you are my strength. There is no mention of Yahusha coming to earth before he was created human anywhere in Scripture. He was not the reincarnated, the king of Salem. He was not the archangel Michael. He was not in the lion's den. He did not wrestle with Jacob, and so forth. Those are all implied lies under the spirit of the false Messiah. There is a great debate spanning 2,000 years concerning the exact year the Nazarene was born to fulfill the heavenly scroll. The guesses by experts range from 12 BC through AD 4. Every guess by humanity over the past 2,000 years ignores the most telling factor in his birth: the zodiac, the heavenly scroll. We have denied Yahuwah's witness of his son found written in the stars. In this chapter, I'm going to restore that vital piece of the puzzle and identify the exact year of the coming of the branch, Yahusha. Isaiah foretold the Messiah's birth to be on the cusp of Aries and Pisces. We just don't realize what Isaiah was looking at when he prophesied the birth of the Nazarene. Isaiah 7:14. Therefore, Yahuwah himself will give you a sign. Sky is Hebrew, Shamian, or heavens. Stars are for signs, not human women. Behold, a virgin, constellation Virgo, will be with child. The king planet Jupiter will proceed out of Virgo's womb and bear a son, and she will call his name, reputation, Emmanuel. Emmanuel means means the true and faithful witness. Emmanuel is a title, not a name. This sign in the sky is laid out in detail in Revelation chapter 12, as it is the sign of both the Messiah's first and second coming. This sign occurred recently, September 23rd, 2017. Just so happened to be on my birthday. Revelation 12, verses 1 through 2. And there appeared a great sign in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, and she, being with a child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. The sign of the Son of Man in the sky, or heaven, the sign of the transitioning of the ages. Job 9 verses 9, which maketh Arcturus, Orion, the Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. Luke 21 verse 11. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall be from heaven. Genesis 1-14. And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years. The prophet Daniel accurately foretold the Messiah's birth down the timing of the fall feast. On the cusp of Aries, Pisces, in the 70 weeks prophetic announcement, Daniel understood the timing as he read the heavenly scroll. The time frame or plan for mankind is foretold reading clockwise from the living creature holding up the scroll just above the transition from Gemini to Taurus, just above Adam and Eve. The plan of salvation is told reading counterclockwise from Virgo to Leo. Simply line up the Messiah's birth, Virgo, with the time frame, and you land exactly on the cusp of Aries and Pisces, 4,000 years into the plan for mankind. Birth of the Messiah foretold in the heavenly scroll. Daniel was the chief astrologer under 3 kings and rose to prominence for his understanding of the heavenly scroll. The Sabbath covenant, foretold in the heavenly scroll. See the first Adam here, and the second Adam here. Ages and epochs. The heavenly scroll is held by the living creature over the age of Gemini creation of man, and ends with the position of the next living creature over the age of Aquarius, the Sabbath kingdom. 6 days labor under the curse of Adam, and the 7th day rest. You see, 6,000 years we labor, and the 7th is 1,000-year millennium kingdom. This is why we keep the 7th day Sabbath. It is a spiritual parallel of the kingdom to come, the 6,000 years. We've gone over this already, but I would just like to pause it so you guys can look at it, study it. The prophet Micah foretold the location. Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem, Ephraim, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come, for me, one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are foretold from old in the heavenly scroll, from ancient times, through the prophets. Romans 1. Concerning Yahusha, which Yahuwah promised. This is Romans 1, verse 2. Concerning Yahusha, which Yahuwah promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures, both the heavenly and earthly scrolls, he did not pre-exist. Concerning his Son, who was born of a descendant of David, through both parents, according to the flesh, Hebrew sarki. I just showed you the definition for that in Strong's. Meaning, by human means only, outside of any divine intervention. Who was declared divine, the Son of Yahuwah, with power by the resurrection from the dead. According to the Spirit of holiness, Yahuwah's spiritual seed is imparted upon resurrection, not human birth. Yahusha, the Messiah. Let me just point out that if man can do it in vitro, I think Yahuwah can too. And also, Yahusha was not the only miraculous birth, that you will learn more about this in this book series. But also Adam was miraculously born by breath. So was John the Baptist. So was Isaac. So was Samson. They were all born miraculously, and we don't worship them as a Messiah, do we? No, we don't. Okay, moving along. We'll cover that later in this book series. What year was the birth of the king? When looking at dating Daniel's 70-week prophecy, there is an ongoing debate about when to begin the timing. It is Cyrus' decree, which was postponed by resistance in the land of Artaxerxes, decree given to Nehemiah when the walls of Jerusalem began construction, and then there are all the various human attempts at calculating dates and the difference between a 360-day Jewish year or a 364 Enoch year or a 365-day Julian year. It is extremely inaccurate to say the very least, and even more frustrating when trying to nail down a timeline. Experts have been debating this for over 1,000 years. I have decided to do what no one else has done, and consult the Heavenly Scroll, the Zodiac, or the Mazzaroth. The only way history can be established, without a doubt, is by using creation and not human knowledge of ancient history, when there was no calendar, as signs are in the stars, and mankind cannot alter those signs. That is why Yahuwah established the Heavenly Scroll to begin with. The 7,000-year plan for man. 6,000 days we labor, the 7th we rest. The only real date that can be established is the birth of the Messiah as foretold in the stars. If we can determine that year or season without a doubt, then every other date can be established with the various time frames given in Daniel by working backward and forward from the Messiah's birth. The scriptural clues. How do we determine the birth of the Messiah? That too has been the subject of many expert debates and ranges from 12 BC to 6 AD. No one has ever included the Heavenly Scroll in the calculation, which is why there has never been a solid date that is reliable. What we do know are clues that help us determine the date of Yeshua's birth. Clue number 1 was during the reign of Herod the Great, because he was killing all the children of that time, trying to find the Messiah and prevent his birth so he wouldn't lose his power of being on the throne. Clue number 2, it was during the Roman census year. Clue number 3, the Star of Bethlehem was over Jerusalem. Clue number 4, the sign of the Son of Man was in the sky, per Isaiah. And clue number 5, it was during the fall feast. Armed with this data, I used Stellarium software to search for the year that fit all 5 clues. If we find a year with all 5 concurring witnesses, we have our rock-solid date from which to build on. That year is 12 BC. The evidence? During the fall feast, September, in the year 12 BC, we had Halley's Comet, the Star of Bethlehem, over Jerusalem in the constellation Virgo during the fall. Professor Barada, an astrophysicist at the Rome Observatory, said he had discovered new evidence after many years of study. Drawing on biblical sources, Roman history, and astronomy, the most crucial errors had been made in the 6th century AD by the Scythian monk Dionysius Exegus, known in English as Denis the Little. Denis, an accomplished mathematician and astronomer, arrived in Rome after the death in AD 496 of Pope Gelasius I, who had summoned him to reorganize the pontifical archives. In AD 525, he drew up the calendar, which became accepted throughout the West, but Denis the Little, the professor says, failed to take into account the year 0 between 1 BC and AD 1, and also ignored the 4-year period when the Roman Emperor Augustus was on the throne, 31 through 27 BC, under the name Octavian. Denis also omitted the first 2 years in which the Emperor Tiberius ruled after Augustus. His stepfather died in AD 14. This 7-year error would appear to support Kepler's theory, Professor Baradas says. On the other hand, Kepler's evidence rested mainly on his identification of the Star of Bethlehem, as described by St. Matthew. Kepler concluded, Professor Baradas says, that this reference to the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 7 BC. But in following Kepler's calculations, the professor had discovered serious discrepancies. Professor Baradas' research pointed to 12 BC, when an unusually bright and fiery traveling star had appeared between the constellation of Gemini and Leo. It was in fact a comet, and was observed by the Chinese as well as by the European astronomers of the time, Halley's Comet. There's a source here. Let that open for a sec. 4 not found. Alright, let's go back. GPO comet positions, red track for 1 Halley for the year 12 BC are plotted on this galactic north polar map. Several comet positions linked by green lines to the sun's position for the same dates. Position information from the table. Well, I guess we don't really need that link because you got this thing right here. Comet positions from the Chinese text were indicated approximately by green, written in descriptions really. So, note, according to Alexander Rosinko, would have been near Alpha Vigneus instead of between. Yeah. So here's the comet here, and then here's Virgo. And right in September. Okay. Cool. Okay, moving on. The Sun and Jupiter in the constellation Virgo, which fulfills the sign of the Son of Man during the fall. It was during the reign of Harold the Great. According to the historian Josephus, King Harold died in 4 BC, so most scholars have placed Yeshua's birth in about that period. But Fleming said Jerry Vardaman, director of archaeology at Mississippi State University, in a new unpublished work describes finding tiny writing on Roman coins indicating an earlier census was made in 12 BC. It was a Roman census year. Jerry Vardaman, director of archaeology at Mississippi State University, in a new unpublished work describes finding tiny writing on Roman coins indicating an earlier census was made in 12 BC. The writing, micrograffiti, Fleming calls it, substantiates an inscription on a tablet found 300 years ago that referenced to the same census. And Fleming said Halley's Comet was visible twice in 12 BC. This could have been the star that initially grabbed attention of the 3 wise men, and when it reappeared 4 months later, led them to Bethlehem. Very interesting. Alright, Nazarenes, come back for chapter 13. God bless, and thank you for tuning in.